Oops. I forgot to put my hat on. So sorry for scaring anybody. Yeah. I guess I'm not used to having these different musical interludes for my streams. Um, uh, I don't know. Hell, I don't know if y'all could even see me yet because I forgot to stop sharing my screen. Sorry, just a little disoriented. No, it's not due to alcohol or gummies or anything like that. Although I do have another moose head tonight. These don't have a lot of alcohol in them, as I said last night. They have about the percentage of, most other bottled beers, about 5% or so. Those Bailey's Irish Cream have like 17% alcohol in a little bitty old bottle of it. So, hey, Texas. What I also have is I was trying to, usually on Thursdays I do my dinner with De Palma, but because we're not in the middle of February, but we are at the start of February, I decided to, put the my dinner with De Palma on the back burner so that I could do a tribute to those actors that we lost, or we have lost, um, that were in the original My Bloody Valentine. Now, last year, I did one just for Paul Kelman. And I don't know, I didn't have a lot of people come to that one, but it just might have not been on their radar. I might have waited too long to advertise it. There could have been a lot of different things. So I thought, well, why don't I try to do a tribute to all three of the actors who sadly have now passed away. Paul Kelman being the most recent, I believe. Um, so um, I believe Keith Knight was the first to pass away. Keith Knight was, of course, the one who played Hollis in the movie, the big-hearted guy who was a peacemaker, treated his woman right, did everything, you know, that would expect these types of guys to do. And from what I can tell, Keith Knight was pretty much a big hearted guy in real life, and was funny and kind and all of those things. So I want to pay tribute to Keith Knight tonight. Um, if you guys have any, I don't know if anybody in the chat tonight would have ever been able to have met Keith Knight, but if you have and you want to share some stories, hey, old curly jaws, um, feel free to share those in the chat, or if anybody has anything that they want to say live and they want to come on here live. I had a surprise special guest last night for the extra credit Valentine's Day horror. For those of you that were in here, you got a real treat because Uncle Bill joined me. We went on for almost 4 hours, just about, not only potential Valentine's Day horrors, but just discussing different movies in general. And I really had a good time doing that. And we were on so late that several other people kind of trickled in over time. So had a really good time last night. Um, so as I always say, if anybody wants to, either put something in the chat if they had gotten a chance to meet one of the gentlemen that I'm talking about tonight, and you want to share it in the chat, or if you want to come live and talk about it, um, feel free. Um, I would be glad to have you. So, not only Keith Knight, but Alf Humphries, who played Howard in the film. He has passed away. I believe he passed away from cancer. It may have been brain cancer. Sadly, any kind of cancer is horrible. Um, but I had a neighbor who the cancer it started somewhere else in his body and eventually went to the brain. Sometimes it happens that way, and sometimes it starts in the brain. There have been people in my family, on my mom's side of the family, several people have died of brain cancer. Um, so yeah, it's including one of my cousins. She was an older cousin and not one that I remember like interacting with a lot. But my cousin Jan, she eventually she lived for a lot of years with it. Um, but eventually it took her away from us. So um yeah, I won't get I won't get too much into that. Um, I've been hearing enough about different uh deaths and stuff like that, famous people and not famous people alike. So I don't want to dwell too much on that. So then, like I said, Paul Kelman was the most recent death um, out of that group of actors that has passed away. Um, and Paul Kelman, there was something about Paul Kelman when, he had kind of to me, he had a sex appeal. I know we all get older and he didn't necessarily look like that before he passed away, but in his younger days, I thought that Paul Kelman definitely had a lot of sex appeal. And definitely in his role of TJ in My Bloody Valentine. Uh, all I see, oh, Curly Jaws is just getting over being sick. Ooh. So did you have the flu, old Curly Jaws, or was it something else? Um, could be stomach flu. I hope it wasn't. I don't want anybody to be sick with anything, but I always say the thing about cold flus is you can usually take some medicine, lay down, and kind of sleep it off a little bit. It's not fun, but I think it's a little bit easier than a stomach flu because with stomach flus, you generally, well, when I get it, I usually spend a few hours in the morning, or if I get it at night, if it hits me at night. Oh, Curly Jaws, bless your heart. Yes. You say it's probably just a stomach bug is going around. My mom did tell me that there was a stomach bug going around. So, yeah, I feel bad for you because that's what I was going to say. Stomach flus are particularly nasty. So I hope you're on the mend soon and feel back to your old self again. So you might not want to see what I have to eat here if you're getting over a stomach bug. So you might want to cover your eyes and ears and stuff like that. But since I'm not doing the My Dinner with De Palma, I thought, well, since I'm doing a tribute to Canadian actors that were in a Canadian made horror film, even though Paul Kelman was actually born in England. So he lived in Canada for the majority of his life, but was born in England. So I definitely consider him still a Canadian. But I thought, well, why don't I look up some Canadian stuff? And the easiest thing I could find was, and I told Steve, I said, I must have Canadian blood in me or something, because I had no idea. I was reading about different Canadian dishes. And, people joke and stuff about them eating craft dinners and, eating the mac and cheese and stuff like that. But it turns out that they like to put ketchup on nearly everything. The Lay's potato chips that came out that were ketchup flavored, that is because of Canadian people. That is very evidently that's very popular over there. But not only is that popular, but putting ketchup on mac and cheese, which I've done for years, putting ketchup on grilled cheese, which I have also done for years, and a lot of people think it's really gross. So I got me some already made, I don't want to dump it out there, mac and cheese, and then I just put a little ketchup on it to get into the Canadian spirit. And actually, it's pretty good. So, if you will permit me to eat a little bit of that as I'm talking about these gentlemen, um, I would be thrilled with that little bit of indulgence. Um, and if you have some moose head, feel free to crack one open. If you drink, if you don't drink, then that's groovy. Um, I'm not saying anybody has to drink. If you don't care for Moosehead and you want to, you still want to drink some alcohol, I mean, you could have some Fireball whiskey that is Canadian whiskey. Um, so, but I'm going to kind of get off the food thing because I don't want to make poor old Curly Jaws ill. So, let's kick this thing off right here. Um, so I don't know if I grossed some people out because I had like 7 or 8 in here, and now it's dropped down to 4. So again, I don't know if that's drive-by people that are just seeing who's live and seeing what they're doing, and if it doesn't seem interesting, they kind of just bypass it and go on to something else. Hey, Blissful. So, with all that being said, I'm going to go on and kick this thing off and start talking about Paul Kelman. Okay. I don't know what that noise was. I heard some noise. Like when I'm back in this back room, I don't know if the walls are very, extra thin or something. This is a built on area of this house. Um, Not a lot of the houses in this neighborhood, they're kind of like cookie cutter houses. Most of them are like the one next to them. But whoever had this house before Steve decided to build a room on the uh, off of the kitchen because prior to this room being built, the house would have ended with the kitchen area, okay, which is back there a little bit. So I think they did it really on the cheap. So um, I don't know if that was a dog barking out there or what, but it was a weird weird kind of sound. So anyway, back to Paul Kelman. Um, I don't know how much you guys that are in here right now know about Paul Kelman, but like I said, he was born in England actually, and I'm not sure if his parents got divorced or what, but I think he moved um, from England to Canada with his mother, unless I have that mixed up with somebody else. Okay. And there is I believe there is another Paul Kelman that's an actor. But we're talking about Paul Kelman that was born in 1949. Like I said, he died last year at the end of January. Um, and like I said, he was born in London, England, and he died January 31st, 2022 in Toronto. The official cause of death is emphysema. He had been fighting emphysema for a long time, and he lived a lot longer than the doctors thought he would. So he was a pretty strong guy, and I think Pizzal had him on his streams, maybe more than once. Um, but I was trying to find a little more information about him. He was 72 when he passed away, and I believe he was also a little bit older than the majority of the people that played the young people in My Bloody Valentine. And he first became known for playing Tom T.J. Haniger in the classic 1981 Canadian slasher My Bloody Valentine, which of course was directed by George Mahalka. Um, So not only was Paul Kelman in My Bloody Valentine, but he was in several other films and television series, including Police Surgeon, The Littlest Hobo, For the Record, Street Legal, and Class of '96. He was also in Caged Men in 1971, which I covered last year when I did the Paul Kelman tribute. That was his debut, and later in Gas in 1981, which is a Canadian made film, a comedy film that I also talked about last year when I did the Paul Kelman tribute. And, something that I always regret is the fact that I did not realize that Paul Kelman interacted a lot with his fans, and fans of My Bloody Valentine. Um, I mean, he was a really good sport about that, and really wouldn't turn somebody away. I mean, I think there was a sorry about that. I think there was a guy that traveled to Canada just to meet him, and Paul Kelman was so generous that he just pretty much welcomed this guy into his home, and gave so much of his time. Now, there is a guy that really appreciates his fans. Not everybody's going to do that. And so, that kind of cemented my I guess I could say love of Paul Kelman, because I was not old enough to, be enamored of Paul Kelman when he was young, and when he was in his prime, when he was in My Bloody Valentine. I was a little bitty kid, and so I didn't even know about this movie. I didn't know about Paul Kelman. And like I said, Paul Kelman was born in 1949. I was born in 1976, okay? So, my parents would probably be more along the lines of being more familiar and being closer in age to Paul Kelman, although my parents are in their 60s. Um, So they're a little bit younger than Paul Kelman was when he passed away. Hey, 71. Texas, you said I need to do a rewatch. It's been a while though. I got the steelbook, I think. I didn't get the steelbook, but Steve did, and he also got me the Harry Warden or the Miner figure from Scream Factory. And I'm not going to grab it because probably if I grab it, then a bunch of shit's going to fall off of the shelf. So um, if you will allow me to not bring that down here and make a big mess. But yeah, Steve did get the steelbook. Yes, Blissful, that's above and beyond nice. 71, are you asking me, did I get a green screen or a background picture? I have a green screen. I haven't used it in a while. That light back there is actually my little astronaut light, and I use that a lot. But I need to start using my green screen again. But I have not as of yet. So evidently it's raining in Texas, according to Texas. This mac and cheese has actually got corn in it, which is unusual. I think it's got some peppers in it too. It's a little spicy, but that's good. Blissful, you love that light? Well, if you want to get you one, I think Amazon still has them. I think it was about $25. Not too awfully expensive. So let's see what else I can talk about as far as Paul Kelman. I wanted to give you a little more a background on him. There's a lot of, people put a lot of stuff about Paul Kelman when he passed away last year. I don't know why that's not wanting to go to that site. There's one though. So this is an article from the Horror News Network from February 2nd, 2022. And at that point in time, they did not give the cause of death. He was also, I almost forgot, he appeared in the 1988 horror movie Black Roses. But most of this information seems to be the same repeated information. Now, the Kinder Trauma site has some information. And I like this because they say he was an incredibly positive, supportive guy who really enjoyed engaging with fans of his work. He was so cool and so kind to once honor us with an interview. So the Kinder Trauma site, you can actually find an interview that they did with Paul Kelman. Maybe, let me see if maybe I can pull a few things out of this interview. So some interesting things that they asked Paul Kelman at the time they did this interview. Um, they asked him what was the first movie that ever scared you, and he says, "Ha, good one. It was Curse of Frankenstein, the 1957 Hammer film with Peter Cushing playing the doctor." He said he was around 8 or 9 years old, and it was his first horror movie. His father took him and he spent most of the time slumped down below the seat in front of him, picking up every little while. It really terrified me. I had dreams about it for days after. The monster was so horrible looking. I can still remember how scared I was. And then they ask, what is the last film that scared you? And he says, well, I don't get scared anymore. Having done films, I look at special effects and CGI. I see the artifice. I was also in the virtual reality industry for around a decade, which I did not know that. I didn't know he was in the virtual reality industry. So I have a good grounding as to what can be done with computer generated reality, especially in 3 dimensions. But I still get excited and allow myself to be taken in, especially if it's well done. He says he doesn't get scared because he was too old for that, but he did get spooked sometimes. I like films that spook me, even if they're a little raw as a finished product. It's how a film uses your imagination in concert with new or macabre concept that achieves that. Recently, I saw a macabre, psychological, and gory vision in a film called American Mary from 2012, and that is a Canadian film starring Catherine Isabel and written and directed by the Soska sisters. So it sounds like to me that Paul Kelman was very well versed um, in horror movies. Okay, here's a good one. Kinder Trauma asks, "What is your fondest memory from working on My Bloody Valentine?" And Paul Kelman says, "I think it was when we got to hang out with real miners, and they took us down to the face in a real working mine at Glace Bay in Nova Scotia, an island province in the east coast of Canada. We were crouched down in this low tunnel, only about 12 feet wide and 5 feet high, a tight fit. The giant drill bit took up 5 feet in width. We stood alongside it as it drilled into the face, black coal dust flying into our goggled faces. One miner hosing tons of water on the bit to cool it down. The noise was deafening, and one wrong move and the massive drill blades would shred you. Talk about a dangerous job. And we probably don't realize just how, other than cave ins, how dangerous a job that miners actually have. Some of these guys had been miners for 30 years. Most had sons who also worked the mine. The work was passed down through generations. And he goes on to say he learned to respect these men. They were crazy, brave, and they felt they were doing a service to people by mining coal, which heated homes and provided energy. Nowadays, we look at coal as an outdated mode of energy and a hazard to mankind. Anyway, the point being is it gave me and the other actors a real sense of what it was to be a miner so we could play one. The camaraderie, how they watched each other's backs, the importance of family, and the honor code of a miner all served to inform our roles in the movie. I like to think of them as coal cowboys. He said the other thing that he remembered the most is the talent, energy, and commitment of the cast. It was like working with an ensemble. There was this raw, almost amateur enthusiasm to make every scene work. There were some real pros like Don Franks, who played Sheriff Newby, Patricia Hamilton, who played Mabel, and Jack Van Evera, who played Happy. Um, and this is going to be in connection with the other two guys I'm going to talk about. He says, then there were Keith Knight and Alf Humphries, and I as TJ, who'd worked together before in another Paramount release, Gas, which was a crazy comedy. But we'd only done a few films. The rest of the cast had done a little film work at best. So it was quite the mix. Yet everyone, once they got on the set, became pros with equal talent, dedication, and devotion to their work. That was special, and I think it showed in the final film, and is part of what makes the film different from other horror slasher films, especially in the 1980s. The characters had a genuineness about them, and the audience could relate and care about them. I do think it's a major part in what has made this film last so long. Um, so I'm going to come back and quit reading for a little bit. I may go back to that interview because that did seem to be one of the more informative ones. Um, 71, you say, what movie did this guy do? You say, I should produce movies about people that have been real creepy in my life and I can make a ton of money. You probably could, 71. Texas, you say American Mary is great. That is one I need to see. Yes, and that Texas is completely correct that the role that Paul Kelman is most known for is My Bloody Valentine. So anyone you say, I think I saw that. I couldn't find Blood Harvest. It must have been a truly horrible movie. Did you look on YouTube? 71 for Blood Harvest? I mean, Tubi might be, I guess Tubi might be another outlet, but you may have already looked there. Just kind of cheated there, didn't they? Hmm. Yeah, I thought Blood Harvest was on YouTube at one time, but um, I'm not gonna lie. The movie to me is one of those so bad it's good. Yeah, I think YouTube did at one time, but for whatever reason, it must have been taken off there. But you did see a recap of every moment on it, so I'm good. Okay, gotcha. Oh, okay. So, does anybody that's in here now have anything that they want to share about Paul Kelman? I mean, is there anybody that was fortunate enough to meet him? Evidently, he interacted with fans a lot on Facebook. And, that was one of those things for me where it was a little too late. Because by the time I realized that he was, interacting with so many fans on Facebook, he had already, he was in palliative care or hospice, whatever you want to call it. And, that was not a time that I figured that I should bother him. I'm sure if he was able, he would have been gracious, but I just didn't want to do that. And then not long after that, I found out that he had passed. So I just wish that I had discovered that little bit of information quite a bit sooner. Um, Instead of finding it out when he was already so sick. 71, you said probably copyright by Tiny Tim. So you've never heard of Paul Kelman, 71? And I probably wouldn't have heard of him either if I had not been such a fan of Canadian horror and was able to find My Bloody Valentine. I was able to see just what a fantastic actor this guy was. So I'm going to go back to this interview real quickly. Kinder Trauma also asked him, "What is your least favorite memory from working on My Bloody Valentine?" He said, "Well, there wasn't anything specific. I can say, though, that it was a tough shoot. We shot the whole film in about 7 weeks, which was ambitious for a rather complex shoot. For me, there were a lot of action scenes, like the fight with shovel versus pickaxe between TJ and Axel, played by Neil Affleck, especially difficult on a speeding rail car, and having a mine sealing cave on our heads. That sounds scary to me. Sarah, Lori Hallier, and then all of us climbing a vertical steel ladder, slippery with mine grease and flowing water. Really, the most challenging was just the fact that we were shooting in a mine in the first place. And yes, they actually did shoot in a real mine. Riding open air wooden mine cars, barreling down a mine shaft at what felt like 40 miles per hour in the pitch dark with only our headlamps for light isn't for the faint of heart. Now, you wouldn't catch me doing it, especially now that I'm so claustrophobic. He went on to say, even though it was no longer a working mine, it still was a real mine. You see, if gases build up from the various compounds in the rock, they can be toxic. And if ignited by a heat source like a hot movie lamp, kaboom. We only had to excavate or evacuate once due to gas buildup. But when you're 600 feet down and below the ocean because it's a coastal mine and your only exit is the cage, the mine shaft elevator, it takes a long time to get everyone out to safety. And then he says, "Oh, I do have a least favorite memory. I just remembered. Some of us were cigarette smokers at the time. I've since stopped smoking, and being in a mine, the only thing we could do so as not to blow up the place was chew tobacco. Just like real miners do, red man chewing tobacco. Now, chewing that black gunk can be dangerous because if you so much as swallow some of the goo in your mouth, you're going to get real sick and puke your guts out. That's why you're always spitting back viscous gobs everywhere, real manly stuff. I actually liked the taste after a while, but spitting black all the time was, well, disgusting. Good for the character, though. It was an added touch of realism." So I'm going to leave off of that interview for a little bit and go back to the live version of me. And I can tell you, when I was reading that about the chewing tobacco, I can tell you a story about my introduction to chewing tobacco. My uncle Johnny, my dad's brother, who has since sadly passed away, um, once gave me a little bit of chewing tobacco and gave his daughter, um, my cousin Kim, some chewing tobacco. I think he just gave us enough to let us get a taste of it, okay? And I pretty much spit it out automatically, and he laughed like crazy about that. So in some cases, it's probably a good thing to let a kid, as long as they're old enough. We weren't like itty bitty kids. Let them get a little taste of chewing tobacco. Let them take a little puff on a cigarette and just hope that they don't like it. Because most kids are not going to like that shit. And as you can see, I do a little bit of drinking, but I've never picked up the cigarette habit. And my dad had the cigarette habit. My mom still smokes cigarettes. Dad gave them up, thankfully, years ago. And I wish that my mom could give them up for her health only, not, I'm not wanting her to do it for any other reason other than to help her. So, I'm not one of these people that says, that's a disgusting habit, yada, 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 and I'm not trying to piss anybody off in here if you're like that. But it upsets me when people are like that. Especially when said people have other addictions themselves. Somebody could be addicted to alcohol, but they talk about how disgusting it is for somebody to smoke a cigarette. Okay. And so that that really just rubs me the wrong way. And Steve, I love him. He's my husband. But he's one of these people that says smoking's a disgusting habit. People oughtn't to be doing it, and he can get downright nasty about it sometimes. But my mom, on the other hand, is one of these people that if she knows that you don't like cigarettes, I mean, she's not going to just light up and start puffing away in your car. She's not going to come in your house and start lighting up and puffing. She's respectful of those things. She may step outside, of somebody's house and smoke if she has to. But she didn't even smoke in her house because my dad, as he's gotten older, he has asthma. And mom doesn't want to smoke in the house with dad. So she'll go out on the back porch and, smoke her cigarettes. So it makes me angry when Steve or anybody else says things, around my mom or worse, directly to her about smoking when she tries her best to be respectful of everybody. So blissfully, you say I'm like that. I only smoke around people that smoke. Yeah, I mean, some people aren't respectful about anything. I don't think it's respectful for somebody to say, okay, this is okay. Drinking like a fish is okay, but heaven forbid somebody should light up a cigarette. I say that's being hypocritical. I'm sorry. But I'm going to get off that before I really piss somebody off. And let's talk a little bit more about Paul Kelman, shall we? I'm really liking this interview. So Kinder Trauma said, My Bloody Valentine is now considered to be one of the best slasher films of its era. Many of us are shocked that there was never a sequel. So John was asking about that last night, actually. And I kind of gave him an answer based on things I had heard George Mahalka say. But let's hear what Paul Kelman had to say about it. So Kinder Trauma said, many of us are shocked that there was never a sequel. If you were approached either back then or now to reprise your role as TJ, would you accept the offer? Paul Kelman says, you're kidding, right? Of course I'd do it. But I never thought by any stretch of the imagination that the work I did in that movie was special or even good. I can say it was an honest performance, but nowhere near what I could bring to a role now as an actor. It's been 33 years after all. I've walked a few miles since then. I'd be lying if I said I'd be lying if I said that I ever expected My Bloody Valentine would become a cult horror classic. I'd really all but forgot about it until a year or so ago. We did have a special screening with the cast at a theater here in Toronto a few years back, and the place was packed. But I figured it was a one time deal. Then, about a year ago, it started with a few fans finding me on Facebook. And like I said, um, from that moment on, Paul Kelman pretty much embraced the fan base for My Bloody Valentine. And he went on to say, over that time, my page has developed a constituency of My Bloody Valentine fans. They seem to be from all over the globe, young and old. At first, I was amused, then surprised and bemused. And then something happened. They started talking about what they thought about the film, about me, and the horror genre. I realized it really meant something to them, and they humbled me with their sincerity and their generosity. They taught me the value of the film and even my work in it. And they showed me how to really value and care about them as an audience and as individuals. It's been a wonderful experience getting to know them and to share all this with them. And now there are hundreds of fans on the page and steadily growing. It's public, so anyone who wants to can join. They only need to send me a friend request and I'll confirm. So he was 64 at the time that this interview was done. Um, and it had, at that point in time, it had been 33 years after the fact. A small C celebrity because of My Bloody Valentine. It's amazing how much I've learned from the fans about the movie and the genre. I've always loved horror and sci-fi, but they, the fans, have turned it into a passion. I've always geeked out with action figures from movies and TV, cartoons, and even have stuffed animals. I have Frankenstein, Godzilla, Alien, and Spider-Man, as well as Star Trek figures. He admitted that he was a huge Star Trek fan. I have a Cat in the Hat, Popeye, and Olive, several Betty Boops, and even a 4 foot high stuffed Mickey Mouse. They're my friends. So, again, he goes back to the sequel question. He says, to get back to your question, you mentioned sequel. So many people ask me why there's not been a sequel. I can't answer that. But what I can say is that in this life, I'm a writer and I know some pretty talented fans that can write. And I've been gathering ideas from the fan base, asking them what they think they want to see in a sequel. So I wouldn't be surprised that in the coming year, dot, dot, dot. And this was a kind of short interview. I'm guessing Kinder Trauma uh, didn't really want to take up too much of Paul Kelman's time. Um, but it makes me a little sad that um, that was 33 years after My Bloody Valentine came out, and Paul Kelman was really gung ho about the possibility of doing a sequel. Then a couple of years later, in Tampa, they had the reunion where a few of the actors and actresses were able to get together with George Mahalka. Peter Cowper was also there, who played the miner. He was in the miner getup. Peter Cowper is a stuntman. Um, and at that point in time, even though Paul Kelman could not be there for that, also Neil Affleck could not be there for that particular um, reunion at that convention. Even at that time, though, George Mahalka was talking seriously about a My Bloody Valentine sequel. But sadly, we have not seen a sequel. And now, sadly, Paul Kelman's no longer around, and so he could not be in that. And I could not imagine anybody else other than Paul Kelman playing TJ. And it would just be too sad, you know. And maybe, that's why we don't hear anything about sequels anymore, because with Paul Kelman gone, I just think it would be a losing battle to make a really good film, um, that could even come close to the original. 71, you said the smoking thing is different because you get secondhand issues. It's different than drinking. Well, I do, and I would never get in an argument with you about this 71. I definitely would not. So please don't take offense at anything I'm about to say. I totally understand the secondhand issues, but I'm talking about people that drink a lot, get wasted, get in their car, and go driving. Uh, to me, what is the correlation there? That's what I want to ask these people. That there are people in my family even that are heavy drinkers that have gotten in accidents while they were drunk. Um, and the potential is there for you to take other people out. There have been people that have been drunk, got in their car, killed people in other vehicles, and they lived. Okay, so that's just the kind of thing that I'm talking. That's where I'm talking about the hypocrisy here, because yeah, I totally get the second hand smoke can hurt. Not only, it can hurt those around you. Definitely, I have that. I'm cognizant of that. But when somebody that's a heavy drinker, and Steve has been a heavy drinker in the past too, he has gotten in accidents drunk. Thankfully, he never, got in an accident with someone and hurt or killed somebody. But that potential is always there. That's all I'm saying. Um, but yeah, I understand what you're saying about secondhand smoke. Blissful, you say off topic. Make sure Texas gives you my email. I'm about ready to kick him in the ankle. Yeah, I keep. Well, Blissful. To be totally honest with you, I keep forgetting to ask Texas for your email. Um, Texas is meh. Uh, Blissful, you say at 71 true. That's why I try not to smoke around non-smokers. And see, that's why my mom does too. And I totally did not take offense at what you said, 71. Um, yes, you can get arrested for public intoxication. You definitely can. Um, 71, you say, good thing he never got caught. That would have been bad. Uh, well, if you're talking about Steve, he did get some DUIs. He spent at least one night in the drunk tank. So yeah, he got in trouble a few times. 71, you say if the cops come to your house and you're drunk, don't go outside to talk to them. They can haul you in for that crap. I have no doubt that they can do that. Um, but back to 71, I mean, not 71, sorry. Texas, do you have anything that you'd like to share about Paul Kelman? I didn't want to like completely take over the discussion, because I kind of wanted to, if any of you guys, now I know 71 says she never heard of him, Um, but I just wondered if maybe Texas, you had, I mean, through Facebook or anything, had you ever had any interactions with Paul Kelman? You say, I'm sorry, Dana. I wish I did. Yeah, me too, Texas. Me too. It's like I said with me, it was unfortunately too little, too late for me. By the time I got on board with it, like I said, he was already in palliative care or hospice. Um, and I just did not feel comfortable saying, "Hey, by the way, Paul Kelman, would you want to do an interview now?" And the guy's laying in bed with oxygen and all that. No, I definitely did not want to do that. Um, so um, we'll move right along to Keith Knight, which is the next person that I wanted to talk about and kind of give tribute to. Um, and Keith Knight, how many fans of? Well, you know what? Before I move on to Keith Knight, I wanted to see if I could find some little clips because I didn't think the full movie was on YouTube, but I did want to. You could buy or rent it, but I did want to see if I could find some TJ clips. So you could see Paul Kelman in some action. And I just want My Bloody Valentine from 81. Now, any other time I would have been able to find some actual clips. Let's see. I kind of wanted to get some early ones. So maybe we can show this one. Okay. So actually TJ's in this one. So let me show you guys this clip. I'll share this clip with you really quickly. Come on, Hollis. We got everything we need down there. We got a rec room. We got a pool table. Everything. Yeah, in the mine where people get killed and eaten. Where Harry was. Shut the fuck up. Beware of what you make fun of, you little asshole. Who? You. Forget about having a party at all tomorrow night, or you'll be sorry. Hey, lighten up, Hal. Piss on Harry Warden and that damn old legend. We're gonna have ourselves a party. Don't you go telling nobody. Don't say I didn't warn. That settles it then. We're going to the mine. We're gonna have ourselves a party. Assholes. Okay. Maybe we can show you one or two more here. Let's see. Liz, will you say, is that Donna's dad on that 70s show? No, but actually Donna's dad from that 70s show is on a horror movie when he was quite young. And that's Evil Speak. He's one of the bullies that picks on poor Clint Howard in Evil Speak. So if you want to see Donna's dad from that 70s show in a horror movie, then check out Evil Speak. Assuming when you say I want to see that. Yeah, I mean, I think you know, if you haven't seen it, I got a pretty good idea that a lot of you that come in here, if you haven't seen it, that you would like um the movie. Okay. So let's take a gander at this thing.
Sarah, move it! Get in! Get in!
So I'm going to stop it there. For those of you that haven't seen it, I didn't want to give the killer away. Let me see if I can find one more TJ related scene here. Oh, somebody does have the full movie on here now. So here's one more that I will show you guys. Let me get it queued up to the right part here. Okay. So let's share my screen again.
troubleshooter, you gotta know the mine. All clear down there? Yeah, we won't need these anymore. But I wouldn't go lighting any matches. Damn, that thing gonna put us place to shit one of these days. We ain't that lucky. Enjoy your warm-up? Yeah, real cool. Why'd you guys wait? Oh, Flanders, you gotta get a lot of exercise if you're gonna grapple with Gretchen there. Oh, yeah? Well, I got a Valentine for her that she's never gonna forget. Right to the heart, huh? It's gonna be a hot time on Saturday night. Yeah! Taste the whiskey. Do anything else with that except throw it over your shoulder and burn it. Get lost, Axel. Oh, bunch of clowns. Things haven't changed a bit. Same as always. And you wish you never came back. Especially now since Sam's going out with Axel. Let's get off my nose. I don't give a damn. Our last one into town gets the brew. Let's go. Okay. Let's go, guys.
Okay. So that's basically all the TJ you can stand there, guys. So Texas, you say we watched Evil Speak together. And then Blissful says Texas and I watched that. And y'all jinxed each other, right? So moving right along to Keith Knight. Keith Knight, for you Meatballs fans, you will remember that Keith Knight not only played Hollis in My Bloody Valentine, but he also played Fink in Meatballs, the guy that they get to win the hot dog eating contest. So Keith Knight was great in that. He was also a very unsavory character in the film Class of 1984. For those of you that have seen that, that's probably my least. I mean, he was very effective in that as one of the bad gang members. And that was also a Canadian film as well, and had a lot of Canadian actors and actresses in it. But that's probably my least favorite character personally that Keith Knight ever played. Because generally, like I said, he plays the Hollis type of characters, the big-hearted guy, or the humorous guy with no ill will towards anyone. And perhaps the reason why he took the role of in Class of 1984, maybe he felt like he was getting typecast at that point in time. Um, or maybe not. That's just one possible idea or reason behind that. Blissful thinks her dog's trying to kill her. That doesn't sound too good. Actually, it does not. But Keith Knight, like I said, was also in the movie Gas with Paul Kelman. Let's see if we can get a little more background on Keith Knight, because he's a guy that I just love in most all of the films that he has been in. So let's see here. Oh, I did not know this, but evidently, according to the internet, Keith Knight died of brain cancer at his home in Toronto, and he was only 51. He actually died in 2007. Um, he was a Canadian film, television, and voice actor. He made his screen debut as Larry Finkelstein in the 1979 comedy Meatballs. He voiced the White Rabbit in the Care Bears Adventure in Wonderland and voiced Pigface in the BBC drama Ace Lightning. Knight was also known for voicing Lowly Worm in The Busy World of Richard Scarry. He was also the voice of Modi Van Oldie in the hit series Erky Perky. Um, so, like I said, he was in Meatballs playing Larry Finkelstein. Hog Wild, he played Vern Jones in 1980. I need to watch that one. Then in 1981, he was in both My Bloody Valentine and Gas. In 1982, he was in Class of 1984 as the character Barnyard. In 83, he was in Siege as Steve. And he was also in a film that I haven't seen in a while, Of Unknown Origin, playing a hardware salesman. 1986, he was in Who Done It. In 1987, he was the White Rabbit in the Care Bears Adventure in Wonderland and Larry in Mr. Nice Guy. Um, a lot of these movies I have not seen him in. The last movie he was in was Looking for Angelina in 2005. But I'd really like to find some of these others um, and look into them. Um, he was actually, I'm guessing this, yeah, this was the Twilight Zone from the 80s. He played a character named Archie in the episode Special Service. So I'm gonna have to go back and take a look at that. Um, but he was also in The Littlest Hobo. Um, he was in episode of American Playhouse. He was in Rin Tin Tin Canine Cop. He was on Shining Time Station as a Mazo. Um, he did the voice of Arnold Muscle Hugger in the animated version of Beetlejuice. Um, he was on there for 18 episodes. So he did, there's a lot of television stuff that he did. He was did a voice of Willow 2 in Anne of Green Gables, the animated series. He was on Queer as Folk. Um, yeah, so I don't know if there's, I was trying to see if there were maybe some interviews with him. Um, Keith Knight he had a 30-year career on stage, film, and television. He was best known for his role as counselor in training Larry Finkelstein in the film Meatballs. Um, he had done voice work for like Franklin. I'm assuming that was the turtle kids show, and also Blazing Dragons. They said that Knight ate more than 100 hot dogs during filming of a hot dog eating contest in the film, so he really ate that many hot dogs. And he was said to be very much a team player. He was very accommodating and willing to take on the challenge of shooting things live and in sequence. Um, And like I said, he was in the 1981 feature Gas. He appeared alongside Howie Mandel and Donald Sutherland. He has appeared in more than 160 television commercials. And he was married to Jennifer McCullough, which I don't know if she's, an actress or just a regular, just a regular person or not. Um, so I'm not really seeing an interview, but I see that Deadly Movies talked about him. They said, "What a man, what a man's man. Just look at his resume for a second, if you will, and you will." The man boasts roles in classic movies such as Meatballs and Of Unknown Origin, classic TV shows such as The Littlest Hobo, The Twilight Zone, RoboCop, and The Never-Ending Story, and voice characterization for shows like The Care Bears, Babar, Beetlejuice, Rupert, and The Adventures of Tintin. Um, and they go on to say, but consider the lady folk out there. They crave real men like Keith. And therein we must persist. Now, as it's almost Valentine's Day, we're here to talk about Keith's role as Hollis in 1981's classic Canadian slasher, My Bloody Valentine. And just look at what he's sporting on his upper lip, a mustache that men wish they had and ladies wish they could have at, and vice versa, of course. Channeling mustache curls that would make the likes of Salvador Dali and Rolly Fingers proud. Keith's Valentine's Day mustache is worth 1,000 roses or a box of chocolates. Here's to you, Keith, and your irresistible hairy lip love slug. Oh, man. That's hilarious. He did have one heck of a mustache on My Bloody Valentine. Yeah, it doesn't look like I was hoping to find there. Hysteria Lives did do an interview with Tom Kovacs, who Tom Kovacs is still living, as far as I know. He's still around, and Tom Kovacs also interacts with people on Facebook quite often. But like I said before, um, Keith Knight was someone that I have always respected as an actor, as a human being. He was another one that I wish that I could have met, or interacted with. But it's another one of those things that's too little, too late. Um, and for that, I'm very much sad about. Um, with Paul Kelman as well. And I was thinking about contacting you. You heard me mention Tom Kovacs, who played Stravinsky, um, Mike in My Bloody Valentine. The guy that gets the pretty redheaded waitress or barmaid or whatever you want to call her. And I always liked his character as well. There are so many in this movie. I think part of what makes My Bloody Valentine so great is the amount of talented, genuine actors and actresses in that movie. I think that's why that movie is still on people's radar. Even so many years after it was released, why people still keep coming back to it over and over again. It's unique in that way. Oh, Curly Jaws, you say, did you like the My Bloody Valentine remake? Well, it's just okay. For me, I didn't hate it. Oh, Curly Jaws. But I would much rather stick with the original. I don't think I've went back and rewatched the remake since I saw it that one time. And I think part of the big push, and I could be wrong on this, but I think part of that big push with that movie and some of the hype that came along with it was the fact that it came out in theaters in 3D. Um, and then I accidentally got the 3D version of it, the home version of it, and had to make a trade with somebody that I knew to. And he had the ability to watch it in 3D, and I didn't at the time. So we just made a swap. He gave me his copy that was in 2D, and he got my 3D copy. So I just think it's okay, but I think I'll just stick with my original copy of My Bloody Valentine. No, you were right on Curly Jaws. Howie doesn't really act anymore. Blissful, you say I absolutely love Anne of Green Gables, but I've never watched the animated movie. I haven't either. Blissful. Yeah, 3D red blue is not great. And now, in the old days of 3D, of which I didn't get to watch much of, the 3D was good. The red and blue 3D was good, decent at the movie theaters. But of course, now they have, at the IMAXs and stuff, they have those other types of glasses that not the red and blue ones. Um, but so does anybody, before I try to find some clips of Hollis here or Keith Knight playing Hollis in My Bloody Valentine, does anybody has anybody had any interactions with Keith Knight before he passed away? Either in person or an interview with him or anything like that. Because I don't know if there's just not a lot of interviews around. I thought they did interview him when one of the Meatballs releases came out, but I could be wrong. But I thought that they interviewed him. Let me just put Keith Knight interview in and see if somebody has actually done a written. Now there is like a conversation with Keith Knight, but there is another Keith Knight that's a cartoonist. Um, yeah, so that might be all that we can find. Maybe if I put up or put in there actor. Yeah, all they're really showing is that cartoonist guy. Yeah, it's basically what I'm finding. Um, Oh, Curly Jaws, you say Surprise 3D hasn't made another comeback. Give it a few more years and it might. Oh, Curly Jaws, I think it comes in cycles. Bliss, what you say? I haven't interacted with actors, just a few. Um, okay, so let's see if I can find. I might just. Oh, I see why they're able to show this full movie. Is because it's going to be a very little screen here. I was like, oh great, I might be able to use this when I do the watch along, but no, I don't know. So if y'all will permit me to like show you a few scenes of Keith Knight as Hollis on a little bit of a smaller screen, we will do that. It's probably because Paramount holds the rights to this, and so they're probably not allowing anybody to show it just without paying. So let's share the screen again. All right. Oops. Hold on a minute, guys. Yeah, sorry for it being so small.
Howard, stay away from me. Hi, babe.
And they also have slowed down they slowed down the dialogue. That's weird. And we just saw Hollis there while Keith Knight. There's Paul Kelman again.
Anything I should know? No. Of course not. Richard, I want you to be my date for the dance. Okay, will you?
Sounds like everybody's taking Quaaludes in
Don't
this.
you know it looked really good on you? Me. Suck it in and zip it up, will ya? Richard, quite fine.
Either that or they've been sucking on helium.
Let the good times roll. All right.
Hi, fellas. Mabel, this is the best thing that's happened to this town in years. Your decorating committee
So
has
you
done
saw
one hell of a
Hollis
job.
there
Well, after all, the first Valentine's dance in 20 years
a little bit.
has to be something special.
Yeah, well, of course you're right, Mabel, but I think we'd all be better off if you played down the fact that it's the first Valentine's dance in 20 years, if you know what I mean.
I'm going to skip ahead here. And there's Hollis there, back there with his fantastic mustache.
Never been robbed of her chariot. All right, she made this Valentine virgin named Harriet. Hey, where you going?
I just want to put on some music, okay?
I guess.
So here's another Hollis scene. Well, actually, gotta back it up a little bit here, guys.
Hey,
Sorry about that.
called junk food. How much longer, huh? Reason. Hey, relax. This thing ain't no microwave. Hey, how about revving it up? I got the munchies. Yeah, me too. A little protein patrol, eh, boy? Don't poke at my meat. Wants to get your nose in the food. It's his. He can do what he wants with it. Is it turkey house? I asked for roast beef. Turkey for the turkey. Go look at me. You feel brave? Stupid.
Oh, well. Oh, well. There. Do you understand me?
Stupid. Howard, you gotta chew it. You don't blow bubbles. I'll take care of myself. How did you ever get to be so stupid?
Maybe show you one more Hollis scene.
Hey, Dave. It's party time.
Okay. So sorry for the and I've lost quite a few people just showing those things. So sorry for the poor quality of that. I was hoping that that would be a pretty regular version of the movie, but I hope you got to see Keith Knight in action, and you can see there um, from those few scenes just how much of a good guy, great guy he was. And like I said before, when people talk about Keith Knight, they say that he was pretty much like that in real life. He was kind to everybody, had a big heart, and so the industry, as well as his fan base, lost a really great person when Keith Knight passed away. Um, and so, I said that I thought Alf Humphries had died of brain cancer, and he may very well have, but of course, I could have had him confused with um, with Keith Knight. So, moving right along to the last person I wanted to talk about tonight, and that's Alf Humphries, who you saw in some of those scenes that I was showing with the other guys in it. Alf Humphries played Howard. He's kind of the prankster, the jokester of the bunch. Alf Humphries was also on some other Canadian made films, notably another horror film called Funeral Home. He played a cop in that film. Um, and Alf Humphries was another one that I thought was very good at his craft. Um, he would either play generally these jokesters, pranksters, like he did in My Bloody Valentine, or he'd be kind of the straight laced guy like he was in Funeral Home, and people would, around him would kind of poke fun at him just because he was so straight laced. So I've got it down to like two people now. Started out kind of strong, but now it's kind of dwindled away. So I'm probably going to try to go through. I don't want to shortchange Alf Humphries in any way, but I do want to kind of try to tie it up a little bit. And I do apologize for, I realized that I had misspelled Alf Humphrey's name um, in my promotion for this. So, Bloody Disgusting had some stuff to say about Alf Humphries when he passed away. Um, he actually passed away, I guess, February 5th, 2018. And so when Bloody Disgusting talked about him, they said, with Valentine's Day just over a week away, it's getting to be that time where we return to Valentine Bluffs with a revisit of the Valentine's horror movie, 1981's My Bloody Valentine. But the revisit this year will bring some sadness along with it, as we're bummed to learn this week that star Alf Humphries has passed away. And Sean Clark actually was the one that broke the news, the sad news to Bloody Disgusting. Sean Clark was actually Humphrey's convention agent. I did not realize that. Sean Clark said, I'm totally heartbroken to hear about the passing of friend and client Alfred Alf Humphries. It was Alf who brought me the entire cast of My Bloody Valentine to put together reunions. He really was a lot like his character in the film, just a super funny and generally good human being. This one really hurts. So I did see Sean Clark's name on that Bay of Blood in Tampa Bay reunion footage. So he says at our last reunion at Bay of Blood in Tampa Bay, we all knew he was having issues, but it seemed to be signs of early Alzheimer's. Well, apparently it was brain cancer. So brain cancer not only got Keith Knight, but it took Alf Humphries as well. And Sean Clark went on to say, I love you, Alf, and I hope you are at peace. Alf Humphries played comic relief Howard Landers in My Bloody Valentine, a miner at Hanniger Mines. Throughout his career, Humphries made a handful of other stops in the genre, appearing in The Twilight Zone, The X-Files, Millennium, The New Addams Family, The Outer Limits, Final Destination 2, and The Uninvited. And there is a cool picture with Sean Clark with Alf Humphries. See if we can find any other. So he was Alf Humphries. A little more information for you on him. He was born on April 3rd, 1953, in Toronto, Canada. He was an actor and writer known for X2, X-Men United, First Blood, and The Uninvited. He was previously married to Elizabeth Moss. He died on January 31st, 2018, in Stratford, Ontario, Canada. And, Alf Humphries is another one that I would have loved to have met. And sadly was never able to. And he's listed as a dramatic actor, which I think is interesting. His breakthrough role was as the Deputy Lester in First Blood from 1982, which starred Sylvester Stallone as Rambo. His other memorable roles include the character Howard Landers in My Bloody Valentine and William Drake in the blockbuster film X2. He also starred in 2 horror films directed by William Fruitt, Funeral Home, 1980, which I have seen, and Bedroom Eyes in 1984, which I have not seen. He also played supporting parts in such films as Act of Vengeance from 1986, Ernest Rides Again from 1993, Luna, Spirit of the Whale, 2007, and Air Bud Spikes Back, 2003. In 2010, he appeared in Diary of a Wimpy Kid as Robert Jefferson, a role he would reprise in the film's sequels, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Robert Rules, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Dog Days, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Class Clown. Humphries also appeared in Duke, released in April 2012 as character Joe. He was also in small guest roles in television shows throughout the 1980s up to the present, including the role of Dr. Pomerantz on the sci-fi show The X-Files, as well as roles on The Twilight Zone, the 1985 and 2002 revivals, Smallville, Outer Limits, and Da Vinci's Inquest. And he was only 64 when he passed away. So sadly, too young to be gone in my eyes. And like I said before, Alf Humphries was one of these people that I wish that I had gotten to meet or to interact with through social media. And, he might have been on social media at one time, but I just, it's one of those things where you have to either come to terms with people that you missed out on opportunities, and also get off the pot and try to interact with some of the other people. Like I'm going to try to see if I can get in touch with Tom Kovacs, who played Mike in the film, because evidently he will correspond with the fans as well. Okay, my Windows security's coming up, but I don't want to keep you guys, all 2 of you that are still in here, much longer. I know this one probably was kind of a bummer and not as fun because I didn't have anybody live with me on this one tonight. Also, I believe Dead Pit may be doing something tonight. I don't know 100% for sure, but I have not seen Uncle Bill or CK in here tonight, and they usually, stop by at least for a little bit in my streams. So, I'm going to try to find, hopefully not from that awful rip of the film where it's like, holy cow, that was just bad. So I guess I could probably show you. I don't know. Hopefully this will show. Hopefully we will be able to see Howard. I think we will in this. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys again. All 2 or 3 of you here. Okay. So let's do this.
Decorating committee has done one hell of a job.
Well, after all, the first Valentine's dance in 20 years has to be something special.
Of course you're right, Mabel, but I think we'd all be better off if you played down the fact that it's the first Valentine's dance in 20 years, if you know what I mean.
Here's gonna come a big scene for Alf Humphries here as Howard. There he is.
Hi, guys.
Oh, come on, you clown! Help his husband pick those things up.
What the hell are you kids doing in here?
You're supposed to be decorating the room, not each other. Where you going, son?
I always go this time of day. Another beer and a real good nose pick.
Oh, I'm sorry, TJ. I don't think he likes being back in the mine very much.
Well, that's too bad. Nobody told him to go out to the West Coast. It's not my fault he couldn't make it on his own. But now that he's back here, he's my son and he's working in the mine.
You guys better put those things back where you found them, or I'll turn you both upside down, especially you.
This is my date, Chief.
Chief, that meeting is set at 7 o'clock. Maybe we should hit the road. Then let's go.
I'll see you kids later. Bye, Mabel. Keep up the good work.
See you, Chief.
I might as well go too. All of this will have to be rewashed.
I'm really sorry, Mabel.
Okay. Casey said you got a strike again, Dana. Did I get a copyright strike? Or are you talking about something else as far as a strike? They cut Dana's stream. Oh.